Lena was only 6 years old, but she had always been curious about everything around her. The colony on Virelia was full of strange creatures, but none were as terrifying as the dragon hatchlings they had just received. Everyone in the colony called them awful, for good reason. Their claws were sharp, their eyes glowed like molten metal, and even in their eggs they hissed and snapped at anyone who came close. The humans were careful. They wore thick gloves and masks, and the scientists kept a long stick near the hatchlings at all times. Lena was too small to reach the eggs, but she had a habit of sneaking into places adults told her not to go. Today she had wandered into the hatchery again, quietly following the scientists as they moved the eggs from one tray to another. One egg in particular caught her attention. It was smaller than the others with a strange black and gold pattern on its shell. It rattled and hissed, making a noise that sounded like a mix between a growl and a squeak. The scientists said it was dangerous, that it might bite or spit fire as soon as it hatched. Lena tilted her head and studied it carefully. To her it did not look awful. It looked lonely. The moment came suddenly. With a soft crack, the shell broke open and a tiny dragon emerged. It was smaller than Lena had imagined, no bigger than a cat, but its eyes were sharp and bright. Its claws clicked on the metal tray, and it let out a shrill screech. The other humans stepped back in fear, whispering about how violent it looked. One scientist even dropped a vial in fright. But Lena did not step back. She leaned closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "Hello," she said softly. The dragon froze. It blinked at her, cocking its tiny head. Lena tilted her head too. She smiled and whispered, "You're cute." The room went silent. The adults stared, unsure if she had gone mad. No one had ever called a dragon cute. Everyone had called them dangerous, terrible, and awful. But something strange happened. The hatchling's tail stopped flicking and it stopped hissing. Its little mouth opened, then closed as if it were trying to understand the word. Lena moved closer and held out her small hand. The hatchling sniffed it, its hot little nose touching her fingers. Then it did something no one expected. It nudged her hand gently with its head. Lena giggled and whispered, "See? I told you you were cute." The scientists exchanged nervous glances. One of them said, "Don't touch it, Lena. It could bite." But the words stopped when the hatchling suddenly chirped, a sound almost like a tiny laugh. It curled its little body toward her hand. Lena laughed too, clapping her hands softly. "You like me," she said. "I like you too." For the next few minutes, Lena and the hatchling simply stared at each other. Every time Lena smiled, the hatchling tilted its head. Every time she whispered, it chirped or clicked its claws. No one could believe their eyes. It was as if the dragon had forgotten how to be awful just because Lena was kind. Other children might have screamed or run away. Adults might have panicked. But Lena had no fear. She did not see sharp claws or glowing eyes. She only saw something small, scared, and in need of a friend. The hatchling, which everyone else thought of as a monster, seemed to understand that instantly. A scientist finally spoke, breaking the silence. This is impossible. It shouldn't react like this. No dragon has ever." He stopped, watching as the hatchling climbed onto Lena's lap without hesitation. It curled its tail around her arm, still blinking at her with those bright, curious eyes. Lena hugged it carefully. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you." The hatchling chirped again, nuzzling her cheek. For a moment, the awful, dangerous dragon seemed just like a tiny, playful pet. The other humans backed away slowly. They whispered to each other about what they were seeing. Some shook their heads. Some frowned. But Lena didn't care. She had found a friend. A friend no one else could understand yet. And she knew, somehow, that this little dragon, this awful hatchling, was going to be very important. When the scientists finally left the room, Lena stayed behind. She talked to the hatchling in soft, gentle words. She laughed when it made funny chirping noises and she gasped when it flapped its tiny wings. She did not know it yet, but this moment was the start of something remarkable. Something no one in the galaxy could have predicted. A human child and an awful dragon hatchling becoming inseparable, bound by something far stronger than fear, trust and kindness. By the time Lena finally left the hatchery, the hatchling was following her with a small, determined hop. Its eyes glimmered with curiosity and Lena waved goodbye, promising to come back. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "I'll be back tomorrow." The hatchling chirped in agreement, almost like it understood every word. No one else could imagine it, but Lena and the hatchling had already begun a friendship that would change everything. The awful dragon was not awful anymore, not to her. And maybe, just maybe, humans had a power the galaxy had never noticed before, the power to turn fear into friendship. The next morning, Lena woke up early, excitement buzzing in her small chest. She had barely slept, thinking about the little hatchling she had named Cinder. Everyone else called it awful, but Lena knew better. She dressed quickly and ran to the hatchery, careful not to wake anyone else in the colony. When she arrived, the hatchling was already awake, its small eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. The moment it saw her, it chirped happily and flapped its tiny wings. Lena laughed. "Good morning, Cinder," she said. The hatchling nudged her hand as if it had been waiting for her all night. The scientists were already there, preparing for their daily checks. They watched silently as Lena approached the hatchling. One of them whispered, "She shouldn't be here. What if it bites?" But Lena did not listen. She knelt down and held out her hand. Cinder sniffed it and then curled its tail around her wrist. The scientist's jaw dropped. Lena smiled at Cinder. "Do you want some breakfast?" she asked. She reached into her small bag and pulled out a piece of dried fruit, something soft that the hatchling could eat safely. She offered it gently, and Cinder took it with careful little bites, making tiny chirping noises of delight. Day by day Lena kept visiting. She spoke softly, sang little songs, and told Cinder stories about the humans in the colony. The hatchling began responding in small ways. It followed her hand, mimicked her movements, and even tried to copy her expressions. The scientists started noticing patterns. When Lena was near, the hatchling was calm. When others approached, it hissed and snapped. One afternoon, a group of colonists came into the hatchery. They wanted to see the hatchling up close. As soon as they stepped near, Cinder's tail flicked angrily, and its eyes glowed brighter. Lena stepped in front of it and held out her hand. "It's okay," she said softly. The hatchling froze and then relaxed, curling slightly against her leg. The adult stared, amazed. No one else could get close to the hatchling without it becoming violent. Only Lena's kindness worked. Cinder learned quickly. It began recognizing simple words like come or sit, but only when Lena said them. It started playing small games too. Lena would hide a tiny piece of fruit and Cinder would try to find it. When it succeeded, it would chirp proudly and tap Lena gently with its head as if saying, "Look, I did it." One morning Lena noticed something unusual. Cinder had been silent, watching the other hatchlings who hissed and fought with each other. Its tiny chest rose and fell slowly, and then it moved closer to Lena's side. She reached out and stroked its small, scaly head. "You're brave," she whispered. The hatchling blinked at her and chirped softly as if it understood her words. The scientists were puzzled. One of them said, "No dragon should respond like this to a child. They are instinctively aggressive. It's impossible." Another added, "It's learning faster than we expected, but only from her." Why her? Lena did not know why either. She only knew she liked Cinder and Cinder liked her. Every day they grew closer. Cinder began following her around the nursery, hopping alongside her small feet, and even curling up near her when she sat down. Lena laughed when it tried to flap its wings to mimic her jumping, and she clapped her hands in delight when it successfully landed without falling. Sometimes, Lena would talk to it about her day in the colony, about her friends, and about the little adventures she had in the fields outside. Cinder would chirp and click its claws in response, tilting its head as if it were listening carefully. Lena liked to think it understood every word. One day Lena decided to try something new. She gently held Cinder's tiny claws in her hands and moved them slowly. The hatchling followed her movements, letting out a soft trill of curiosity. "You can trust me," Lena whispered. "I won't hurt you." Cinder blinked, then nudged her hand, pressing its tiny head against her palm. That evening, the scientists gathered again to discuss what they were seeing. "It's learning faster than any dragon we have studied," one said. "And it seems to have a bond with her that no one else can create." Another shook his head. "We always thought dragons were only controlled by strength or fear, but this is different. She's controlling it with kindness." The next morning, Lena returned to the hatchery and Cinder was waiting eagerly. It chirped and flapped its wings, running to her as soon as she knelt down. Lena laughed and hugged it carefully. "Good morning, Cinder. Ready for another day?" The hatchling chirped in agreement and followed her as she walked around the nursery, inspecting the other hatchlings. The bond between Lena and Cinder grew stronger every day. No one could explain it. No one could replicate it. It was something simple yet powerful. Cinder was not just a dragon anymore. It was Lena's friend and she was its world. By the end of the week, the scientists realized something important. The hatchling that everyone called awful was changing. It was calmer, happier, and more curious than ever before. And it was all because of a small human girl who had called it cute. Lena had done something no one else could do. She had reached into the heart of a dangerous creature and found trust, friendship, and even joy. And Cinder had done the same. The hatchling had found someone who cared for it, someone who saw it not as a monster but as a friend. The humans may have been surprised, the scientists may have been amazed, and the other hatchlings may have been confused, but Lena and Cinder knew the truth. They belonged together. No one else could touch the bond they had built. And as Lena skipped home that evening, Cinder hopping happily behind her, she felt something she had never felt before. That she and the awful hatchling had begun an adventure that might change everything, not just in the hatchery but in the entire colony. News about Lena and Cinder spread quickly through the colony. People whispered in hallways and mess halls, unable to believe what they had seen. A 6-year-old human girl had tamed the awful dragon hatchling, something no adult or scientist had ever done before. Some were amazed, some were worried, and some didn't believe it at all. The scientists were both excited and cautious. They held a meeting in the observation room, looking at monitors that showed Lena and Cinder playing in the hatchery. "It's impossible," one said. "No dragon should respond to a human, let alone a child. They are instinctively violent." Another scientist shook his head. "But she has a bond with it. Look at the way it reacts. Calm, playful, even obedient. No one else can get close." The colony's leaders became involved. They worried that other aliens might hear about this miracle and come to investigate. A dragon considered awful and dangerous bonding with a human child could be seen as a threat, or worse, a weapon. "We must monitor this closely," one leader said. "We don't know what powers a dragon might gain from this bond." Meanwhile, Lena spent her days with Cinder as usual. She would tell it stories, feed it, and laugh when it tried to copy her actions. Cinder had learned new tricks. It could hop onto a table, chase a small ball, and even mimic some of Lena's simple gestures. The more Lena interacted with it, the calmer and more curious the hatchling became. Other humans could not get near it without it hissing or snapping, but with Lena, it was gentle and playful. Some colonists were skeptical. They said Lena was lucky or that Cinder had no idea it was dangerous yet. One colonist whispered, "It won't last. The hatchling is still a dragon. One day it will show its true nature." Lena overheard this but did not worry. She only looked at Cinder and smiled. The hatchling chirped and nudged her hand as if to say, "Don't worry. I'm yours." Aliens from nearby systems began to take notice. A small scout ship hovered outside the colony, observing from a distance. The aliens were curious. Humans were weak, but here was a child who had somehow influenced one of the most dangerous creatures on the planet. The aliens sent messages to their leaders, questioning how a human could control a dragon. Inside the colony, scientists tried experiments. They would call Cinder, place food in front of it, or try gentle commands. The hatchling ignored all of them unless Lena was present. It became clear that the bond was unique. Lena had something that no one else had, an innocence and kindness that the dragon responded to. One day the hatchling showed a surprising sign of intelligence. Lena had left a small puzzle of blocks on the floor. Cinder examined it, tapped a few blocks with its claws, and eventually nudged them into a small stack. Lena clapped her hands in delight. "Good job, Cinder," she said. The hatchling chirped proudly, hopping in circles. The scientists gasped. They had never seen a dragon think in such a way so quickly. The adults began to understand something important. Lena was not just lucky. She had a gift. She could communicate with the hatchling in ways others could not. It was not about fear, food, or force. It was about trust, love, and attention. The humans in the colony had always relied on strength and training, but Lena had used something much simpler, and much stronger. Word reached the colony council. They decided to allow Lena more freedom with Cinder, but under supervision. It was risky, but they could see the potential. If a human could bond with a dragon this way, maybe it could be the key to understanding other creatures too. Lena, unaware of all the politics and fear around her, continued her routine. She would wake up early, skip breakfast to see Cinder, and spend hours in the hatchery. Cinder had begun to show affection in small ways, resting its head on her shoulder, curling its tail around her arm, and chirping whenever she spoke. It even started following her to the observation window when scientists arrived, as if showing off its bond. Some colonists began calling it a miracle, others a warning, but Lena did not care. To her, Cinder was her friend, nothing more and nothing less. She had found someone who understood her, someone who needed her as much as she needed it. And every day the hatchling grew stronger, smarter, and more playful, but only with her by its side. By the end of the week, the colony realized something amazing. Cinder, once called awful and dangerous, was becoming calm, intelligent, and affectionate, all because of Lena. The humans were amazed, the aliens were curious, and the scientists were thrilled. But most importantly, Lena and Cinder were happy. The bond between them was growing stronger every day, and no one could predict what adventures awaited them. The hatchling chirped and hopped beside Lena as she skipped home that evening, the sunlight glinting off its tiny scales. Lena laughed, spinning around with joy, and Cinder chirped back, matching her excitement. For the first time, everyone in the colony understood something they had forgotten. Humans had a unique gift. They could reach hearts where fear and power could not. And in that moment, Lena and Cinder were proof of it. One morning, the scientists decided it was time to test Cinder. They wanted to see just how strong the bond between Lena and the hatchling really was. They set up a small obstacle course in the hatchery. It had low walls, ramps, and a few small objects for the hatchlings to navigate. The goal was simple: reach the end and retrieve a treat. The other hatchlings went first. They jumped, flapped, and hissed, but most got scared or confused by the obstacles. Some knocked over the walls. Others refused to move at all. The scientists scribbled notes furiously. Dragons were unpredictable, they reminded each other. Finally, it was Cinder's turn. Lena knelt at the starting line, holding her hand out. "Come on, Cinder," she said softly. The hatchling chirped in response, its bright eyes locking onto her. The scientists held their breath, unsure what to expect. Cinder was still called awful after all. At first, Cinder hesitated. It looked at the obstacles, then back at Lena. Her calm smile seemed to encourage it. Slowly it hopped forward. One claw, then another, carefully stepping onto the first ramp. Lena whispered, "Good job," and the hatchling chirped again, flapping its tiny wings in excitement. The other hatchlings hissed from the side, but Cinder ignored them. It was focused entirely on Lena. When it reached the first wall, it hesitated for a moment, glancing at her hand. Lena leaned forward slightly and said, "You can do it. I'm here." With that, Cinder climbed over the wall easily, landing softly on the other side. The scientists were astonished. They whispered among themselves. No dragon had ever navigated the course so carefully. And Cinder was not just careful, it was learning. When it encountered the small objects, it nudged them aside with its tiny claws, sometimes trying different ways to move them. Lena clapped her hands softly and praised it every time it tried something new. The last obstacle was a small ramp leading to a tray with a treat on it. Most hatchlings had struggled with it, slipping or refusing to climb. Cinder approached slowly, looking at Lena for reassurance. She smiled and said, "You can do it, Cinder. I believe in you." The hatchling chirped loudly and flapped its wings, then climbed the ramp steadily. It reached the tray, nudged the treat with its snout, and picked it up carefully. The room erupted in quiet amazement. The scientists exchanged stunned looks. One said, It actually completed the course. All on its own, but only with her. Incredible." Another whispered, "This is more than training. It's understanding. The hatchling is thinking." The test continued for several runs, each time making the obstacles slightly more difficult. Lena spoke softly to Cinder, guiding it with words and gentle gestures. The hatchling never failed. It jumped, climbed, and even solved small problems that the scientists had never expected it to manage. At one point, Lena let the hatchling pause and watch another hatchling struggle. Cinder tilted its head, chirped thoughtfully, and then hopped over to help, nudging the other hatchling gently so it could get past a ramp. Lena laughed softly. "You're clever, Cinder. You even want to help others." The scientists were speechless. A dragon that could think, learn, and show what looked like empathy? It had never been documented before. After the test, Cinder curled up next to Lena, chirping proudly as she petted its head. The scientists stepped closer carefully, observing, but Cinder did not snap or hiss. It was calm, confident, and happy. Lena whispered, "You did amazing today. I'm proud of you." The hatchling blinked at her, then chirped again, resting its tiny head against her shoulder. The day ended with a quiet discussion among the scientists. "It's clear that Lena is not just lucky," one said. "The hatchling responds to her, trusts her, and even learns from her guidance. It's unique. Humans, maybe they have a special ability we never understood." Another nodded. "Perhaps it's something about empathy, patience, something we cannot replicate. A human child has formed a bond with a dangerous creature that no adult could achieve." Meanwhile, Lena and Cinder were completely unaware of the weight of the scientists' discussion. To them it was just another fun day. Lena gave Cinder a soft piece of fruit and laughed as it chirped happily, flapping its tiny wings in delight. She hugged it carefully, feeling its little heart beating quickly. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. "You're amazing." Cinder nuzzled her cheek, curling its tail around her arm. It had completed the course not because of fear or force but because of trust. It was learning to think, to explore, and to respond to kindness in a way no one else could teach it. Lena had shown it the most important lesson of all, that friendship and trust could guide even the most awful dragon to do incredible things. By the evening, news of the test had reached the colony leaders. They were impressed, cautious but hopeful. If a human could bond with a dragon like this, perhaps humans could play a role in ways no one had expected, bridging gaps between creatures, taming fear, and showing that small acts of kindness could achieve the impossible. And as Lena skipped home that evening, with Cinder hopping happily beside her, she did not realize it, but the bond they had built in the test would mark the beginning of something greater, a friendship that could change how the galaxy saw humans forever. The days passed quickly and Lena and Cinder became inseparable. The hatchling had grown a little, its scales shining brighter in the morning light, its claws stronger, and its eyes full of curiosity. But no matter how big it grew, it always stayed close to Lena. Wherever she went, it followed, hopping, flapping, or chirping happily. The scientists continued to study them, amazed at what they were seeing. Cinder learned faster than any dragon they had ever studied. It could follow complex gestures, respond to Lena's words, and even anticipate what she wanted before she asked. But the most incredible thing was how calm it remained around her, even when other humans approached or other hatchlings made noise. It was as if Lena had a special power, a way to reach into a creature's heart that no one else could. One afternoon, the colony leaders decided to hold a meeting to discuss what they should do next. If a human can bond with a dragon like this, one said, then perhaps humans have abilities we never imagined. This could change everything. Another leader nodded. We need to think carefully. The galaxy will want to know about this. But it must be protected. Cinder belongs to Lena, not to anyone else. Lena, of course, had no idea about these discussions. She only knew that Cinder was her friend and that she loved spending time with it. She laughed as it chased a small ball across the nursery floor, chirping in excitement when she threw it higher than usual. Cinder flapped its wings, hopping skillfully over obstacles, and then returned to her side, curling its tail around her arm like a tiny blanket. One day Lena had an idea. She placed a small mirror in front of Cinder and watched carefully. The hatchling blinked and tilted its head, then chirped softly. Slowly it stepped closer, peering at its reflection. Lena laughed. You're funny, Cinder. You look like yourself in there. The hatchling chirped again, tapping the mirror gently with its tiny claws. It was curious, playful, and smart. Lena's heart swelled with pride. The scientists observed from a distance, whispering to each other. It's not just learning tricks, one said. It's exploring, thinking, and interacting with the world in ways we can't teach. Lena has awakened something in it, something only humans can do. Another added, this is more than a bond. It's a miracle. By now, Cinder had grown comfortable enough to explore the colony under Lena's watch. It hopped along corridors, chirped at passing colonists, and even played gently with other hatchlings when Lena was present. The colony began to see it not as a dangerous dragon, but as a remarkable creature with a special connection to a human child. One evening, Lena sat outside the nursery, Cinder curled beside her like a small, scaly cat. The sunset painted the sky in shades of red and gold. Lena whispered softly, We've had so many adventures already, Cinder. I wonder what we'll do next. The hatchling chirped and nudged her hand, as if promising that more adventures were coming. The scientists continued to watch quietly, realizing something profound. A human child had done what no adult, no alien, and no scientist could achieve. Lena had shown that courage, kindness, and trust could reach even the most feared creatures. She had reminded everyone that humans had a power beyond strength or technology. They had empathy, intuition, and a heart capable of forming bonds no one else could. As the weeks passed, Cinder grew more intelligent and playful. It began learning small games, responding to gestures, and even showing affection to other humans, but only after Lena encouraged it. It became clear that the hatchling's growth and learning were tied to her presence. Lena had unlocked something in Cinder that no one else could, and in doing so, she had changed how everyone in the colony viewed humans. One morning, a small alien scout appeared outside the colony, observing silently. Lena and Cinder were playing near the observation window. The alien's sensors detected the bond between them. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. A human child had tamed and inspired a dragon, not through force but through friendship. The alien observers recorded the moment, realizing that humans had a quality the galaxy had overlooked, the ability to inspire trust, loyalty, and love. That evening, Lena hugged Cinder tightly. We did it, Cinder. We're a team and nothing can change that. The hatchling chirped happily, pressing its head against her cheek. In that quiet moment no one else mattered. Not the scientists, not the colony leaders, not the aliens observing from afar. Only Lena and Cinder existed, a human and a dragon bound by trust, kindness, and a friendship that could never be broken. The colony had learned something important. Humans were not just weak or fragile. They had a hidden strength, a power that could change even the most awful dragon into a friend. Lena and Cinder were proof of it. And as they sat together, watching the stars emerge in the evening sky, it was clear that this small human child had accomplished something no one in the galaxy could forget. The awful dragon hatchling was not awful anymore. It was Cinder, a playful, intelligent, and loyal friend. And Lena, the 6-year-old human girl, had proven that even the smallest human could make the biggest difference in the galaxy. Together, they had created a miracle. A human miracle that would be remembered for generations.